Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Rap Godz from Board Game Brothas.
And now for something completely different. Completely different.
This is a game for 2 to 4 players. Plays in about 30 to 60 minutes. It's essentially a Euro style game. You'll be trying to increase different stats for your rappers to complete objectives. But obviously, most prominent thing about this game is just the theme, which is very unique. Let's start here with our rule book. This is a Kickstarter special edition, so you may find your copy has a few less components in it. I believe the additions to this copy are just a few extra cards. So here we have our different components, and then obviously setup and rules explanation beyond that. Got a little scorecard in the back here, and then a little cheat sheet just to explain the game in short here. So we've got a lot of components in this game. We got quite a few decks of cards, which will be the primary action that you'll take on your turn. Extra bags, which I love when companies do this personally. We've got a few dice here. There's 1 die per player color, which will be these 4. And then there's this extra die, which is the beef die. It's basically the mechanism in the game that allows you to attack your opponents and kind of steal their different stats. We got a little token here. Well, I say little, except this is probably the heaviest metallic token I've seen in a board game. And this is the first player token, as well as just being just a really cool little bit to have around. You don't often see a coin that thick in a board game. You got the rest of the components here in the bag. These are just player components. So you'll see that for the most part, they're just in the player colors. So 4 bags for the player colors. And then we've got a last little bag of cubes, and just like the die, these are used for the beef mechanic, attacking other players. And essentially, if you attack another player, you get one of these cubes, which could be one of the objectives of the game. Let's look at the player components. I'll just look at one of them here. So you've got this large piece here with the game name on it. It's very nicely screened on there. Looks pretty good. You've got 3 smaller cubes. These are for your primary stats, which you'll increase during the course of the game. And then you got 2 larger cubes. I know one of these, at least, will be used for your special ability. If you ever use your special ability, you'll put a cube out basically to designate you've used it and where you've used it. Some more cards there, which we'll look at in a minute. Here is the game board. And let's do the punch board before we get to that, just so I can show you the game board in total. So we've got quite a bit of punch board here. These record chits, which are very nicely embossed, you can see they've got a metallic look to them. It's very cool. This is just essentially the money of the game. You'll be accumulating these throughout the course of the game. And you can see the bronze ones are 1, worth 1. And all of this punches out very nicely. It's a very nice thickness. And as I already said, the front of it's just very unique and very cool, I think. Then you got gold ones, which are your 5s. And finally, at the top, you've got platinums, which are 25s. Off to the right here, we've got some tokens for the different cities. So at the start of the game, you'll put out a certain number of cities based on the number of players. And these cities will do 2 things. One, it will determine your starting resources. So basically each player is going to make a choice on what cities to put out. They're going to get a couple options, and we'll see later there are cards that match these tiles that will tell you, based off of what city you choose, what your specific starting resources are going to be. And then the city as well determines the in-game objective, or one of the in-game objectives for all players. So you're going to choose a city to put out. It's going to determine your starting resources, and then it's going to be an in-game objective for you and every other player. And like this one is just have the most of this stat. This isn't actually money. Money is a different income. This is just one of the stats you can increase during the course of the game. And for that, you're going to get 10 points. And this is the money icon. This is the record label. So 10 money at the end of the game. So also at the end of the game, obviously money is points as well. We've got a couple other tokens here. This one's just in case you have a lot of those red cubes. You can use one of those instead. And then you've got different game objectives here on these large silver discs. And then these will be out on the board. And these are first come, first serve type objectives. So the first person to reach 20 on all of the different stats, or the rap resources they call them, gets 15 points. And this is just the first person to do it gets this, and it's just worth that many points. The first player to have 3 in a row of the same color on their timeline, we'll talk about that, but that's basically the cards you play on your round. They go into a timeline in your area, basically a bit like tableau building, except it's only for meeting objectives or for scoring points at the end of the game. But again, these are the first people to do these things get these tokens. So unlike the city tiles, which everybody can accomplish, these are one-time deals. We've got some little tokens here. These are just representing the 3 different skills that you'll increase during the course of the game. So these are the 3 skills that you can increase. And then we've got a couple more boards with just more of the same. More money, more city icons, more of these global accomplishments, and then a third, and just the same thing again. This is all really nice, by the way. I should point out, everything punches out really well. The cardboard's nice and thick. Everything's inked really well. I'm actually kind of impressed because this is the first game by these particular designers. So they really seem to have done a really nice job for a first game. Here we have our board. And let me see if I can get it in the right direction. This is a very busy board with the colors on the outside. It's some people are going to like this very colorful board. I find it a bit distracting personally, but mileage may vary. So we've got a couple things here. First, you'll see we've got spots here on the left for our different global achievements. So you'll put out a few of these. You're going to have more of these than necessary for a particular game. So there's replayability there. We've got locations out here for the cities. So the cities will be put out like this. And obviously you'll play with as many as there are players because the players are choosing what cities to put out. We've got spots here for different cards, which we'll look at in a second. We've got 2 tracks down here, one for essentially the rounds. So you play over 3 rounds, which they call albums. And then here, tracks, those are basically the actions that players will take. So they'll get 5 actions in a round, and you'll play 3 rounds total. So now that we've seen all the other components, let's go ahead and take a look at the cards, which are really the heart of the game. So let's look at these real quick. So these are called come up cards, which you'll see go into these spots here on the right, and there'll be a number of them based on the number of players. They also have a number here in the bottom left. That's what album they come out on. So these will only come out on album number 3. and they'll be the strongest of the cards available. But let's go ahead and look at these real quick. These are action cards, and essentially on your turn, you're going to play an action card. However, these are more powerful actions than normal, so they'll be over here on the board. To claim one of these, you have to discard 3 cards from your hand at the start of your turn, and then you can take this card into your hand, and then if you choose to, and you probably want to, you're going to play that card. So every card has a couple different things on it. Most notably, you'll see here in the top left is both a color and several symbols. And these symbols, you can see, will be different depending on the card, like so, as well as the color. The color is important because there's some things where you want to have a run of a specific color, or you want to have one of each color in your tableau at the end of the game. And as I said earlier, when you play a card, say you play this one, you're going to put it in front of your player area, and you're going to keep it there for the end of the game. And that's, again, for the same thing for scoring objectives, but also for in-game scoring. Now, on the top here, that's going to tell you what you're going to get. So this one gives you 8 money, 8 currency, basically. And then it's going to move you 7 points on this particular stat. So again, we're going to have our player pieces. Let's say we're playing green, and our stats are going to start at some value here on the board. So this one, by playing this one, you'd get 8 money, and then you'd increase this stat by 7 steps. We're currently at the 3 on that stat, so we'd move all the way up here to the 10. And again, moving yourself up on these different stats is a way to complete these objectives, as well as a way to score points at the end of the game. And that's essentially it for these particular cards. We've got some, obviously you've got some artwork here, as well as a title and a little flavor text here at the bottom. But that's essentially what you're going to be playing the cards for, is for these abilities. Sometimes you'll have cards, and I don't see any here, that have requirements on them. So let's see if we can look at a few more and see if we can find some that I can show you there. Moving up your stats does allow you to complete certain objectives, but it also, your stats are sometimes requirements for playing different cards. So here we've got the rest of the come up cards, as well as the city cards. So let's put those over there for now. The rest of the come up cards here, it's just going to be more of the same. These are, again, the stronger cards in the game, so these don't appear to have any of the requirements on them. So let's look at the album cards. And these album cards, again, have a number in them, because when you're on album 1, you're going to get album 1 cards, and then as you go on, you're going to get later cards. Album cards, you're going to start with 5. And then these are the cards that you're going to have in your hand that you can discard to gain these come up cards, or you can just play these as well. So you'll see here, this one gives you 3 money and moves that track up 3, but it requires you to already have 5 in this particular track. So here is the requirements, essentially. And these are just going to be played just like the other cards. You're going to play them. You're going to move your stats, gain whatever resources, and then you're going to play them in front of you into a tableau, basically a timeline. So here we have the beef cards, and you can tell that they're those because they have red backs. These are essentially the attack cards. And the way these work is the player who decides to play them is going to choose another player. So say I'm the green player, so I got my green die, and I want to attack the white player. A couple of things here. One, this is what you're aiming to get or lose. So you're trying to take these 3 points from them. Whoever loses the fight is going to lose those 3 points, whether it's the person who played the card or the defender. However, the person who plays the card gets an advantage. They get the beef die. So if I'm playing this card as a green player, I'm going to roll both of these dice. And then the defender is going to only roll their 1 die. And then whoever has the most, which in this case is me, is going to win the beef. When you win, first you're going to get one of those red cubes, but also you're going to essentially steal these resources from that opponent. So they're their value in this stat will go down by 3 and mine will go up by 3. And that's the way the beef cards work. So we've got a couple more decks of cards here. And a lot of these will be repetitions of cards that we've already seen, but for later phases of the game. So here are the Album 2 cards. And that's all this deck is just Album 2 cards. Again, more beef cards, they're a little bit stronger. And then the regular cards are stronger and then usually have some unlock on them as well. Our last deck of cards here. So here are our wrapper cards, which are basically our characters. Let's put those aside real quick. And our Album 3 cards, which again, more the same. So let's look at the last 2 cards we have left, which are our city cards and our wrapper cards. So I already kind of explained the cities, how they work. Each player is going to pick one and choose to put it out, and that's going to determine one of the in-game objectives. What the city also does, which you can see on these cards, is it determines what that player starts with. It also gives you just another explanation for what you're trying to achieve. So essentially, you're going to, at the beginning of the game, you're going to get dealt a certain number of these cards, and then you're going to choose one, and that'll determine your particular starting value, and then again, the collective objective that everybody's trying to achieve. And then lastly, we have wrapper cards, and you're going to get a couple of these at the start of the game. As you can see, there are quite a few of them, and these have a couple different effects. Obviously, it gives you, your wrapper name and a couple other interesting little tidbits for your character, but it also gives you an additional way to score. So at the end of the game, if you're playing as this person, you're going to get 2 extra money. And again, money is victory points for every blue and every green album card or card in general that's in your tableau. Again, all the cards are color coded. So if you're playing this character, you're going to want to particularly pay attention to these cards because they're going to give you extra points at the end of the game. You also have a special ability. So this character, once per album, give 1 card to another player, then take 3 plaques from the bank. Again, plaques are money, so this person can basically give away their bad cards just to get money. And that's not an action. That doesn't take one of their actions from the track here. That's just something that they get to do for free. And there are quite a few of these. You'll notice that there's nothing here because he doesn't have anything, but there are some characters who do have basically a personal objective. This one is at the end of the game, if this person has 10 or less in this value, in this stat, they're going to earn 10 extra money. So this is basically an objective that only this character can earn. But that's it. So that's everything you're going to get, and a copy of Rap Godz from Board Game Brothas.